Deaths in Glenmorach Manor, a fiction novel. Written by Shirley, read by Sir Lawrence Olivier. This audiobook was narrated using synthetic voice technology provided by 11 Labs. Chapter 13. I walked quietly down the dimly lit corridor of Glenmorach Manor as I made my way to the private room of my old mate, Mr. John Barnett. The events of the evening, my tense interview with Miss Emily Scott, weighed heavily on my mind, but a sudden thought struck me. There was more to this case, more to the Wallace family, and I needed to get to the bottom of it. I stopped in front of John's door, my hand lingering on the brass doorknob for a moment before I knocked twice. The sound echoed through the hallway. After a beat, I heard footsteps approach, followed by the soft click of the lock turning. "Ah, Ernest, come in, mate." John greeted me warmly, his tall figure framed in the doorway, a glass of brandy in his hand. I nodded and stepped inside. "Hey, John. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "Not at all. What's a late night for someone like me? Just finishing up some paperwork." John gave a light chuckle, motioning to a pair of armchairs by a crackling fire. "Would you care for a drink?" "I think I might," I replied, sitting down and loosening my tie, the weight of my thoughts pressing on my mind. John poured a generous amount of brandy into a crystal glass and handed it to me. "A fine night for a cigar as well, don't you think?" I accepted the drink, but declined the cigar. "Not tonight, mate. I've already had a long evening." John settled into the armchair across from him, taking a deep drag from his cigar. The firelight flickered, casting shadows on the walls. For a moment, the room was silent, save for the crackle of the logs. After a long pause, I finally broke the quiet. "There's something more going on here, John. I need to know everything." John raised an eyebrow, the smoke curling around him as he exhaled slowly. "Everything?" "Yes, I spoke to Miss Scott this evening. She seemed too terrified. I have a feeling there's more than what she told me. I started to feel that I'm not just here to investigate Benjamin's death. I feel like I came here for another reason." John shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his gaze flickering away. "You know as well as I do, mate, that the Wallace family has a way of keeping things in the shadows." I leaned forward and spoke to John with my voice firm. "The shadow of this murder has cast far enough, John. If you're hiding something, it could be crucial. I'm here to solve this, and you need to tell me what you know. Everything could link to Benjamin's murder." John's fingers tapped lightly against the glass, his face tightening. "I've told you before, Ernest. I'm here strictly to handle Lord Wallace's legal business. Nothing more." I took a slow sip of my brandy with my eyes narrowing. "You don't think I don't know when you're lying, John? I've known you too long. There's something you're not saying." John hesitated, his shoulders slumping slightly. He seemed to wrestle with the weight of his conscience before leaning forward, lowering his voice. "All right. You want to know the truth?" I nodded sharply. "I've got to know the truth, mate." John exhaled, staring into the fire. "Lord Wallace was specifically named as the executor of his late younger brother, Edward Wallace's will. He's been acting as the trustee of a trust set up for his widow, Lady Lucy, for her lifetime. As long as she never remarried, she's been receiving income and the right to live in the property that formerly owned by Edward Wallace, you know, the East Pavilion of Glenmorach Manor. He asked me an advice in case he needs to make changes to the will." I asked him, "What kind of changes? Why he thinks he needs to do so?" "Lady Lucy, she's been caught having an affair with another man." John's voice dropped to a whisper as though the very words were taboo. "What do you mean?" I asked him again, my curiosity raised. "Lord Wallace seeks to protect Anthony should Lady Lucy decide to remarry in haste. It is his way of ensuring the family's fortune remains intact, guarded from the hands of a future stepfather or the claims of half-sibling." I sat back, digesting the revelation. "So that means Lady Lucy would no longer have a claim to receive income payment and live at the East Wing Pavilion of Glenmorach Manor or some part of the Wallace estate?" John confirmed, his voice low. Yes. Lord Wallace, as the trustee, would use that income or property for the care of Anthony Wallace, as the rightful son to inherit the fortune left by his father, the Honourable Edward Wallace. And, in fact, Lucy would only be left with a small cottage in Irvine, North Ayrshire, and a lump sum of money. Nothing more. That's a hell of a change, I muttered, my mind spinning. And per Lord Wallace's wishes, now Robert Wallace acts as the new heir apparent following Benjamin's death. He is the next Viscount of Ayrshire. He will inherit everything: the title, the estate Glenmorach Manor, the wealth, and the legacy of the Wallace family and business. In the event of Lord Wallace's passing, Lady Lucy and Anthony are no longer under their responsibilities. Not after the changes Lord Wallace insisted upon. But this is all supposed to be kept quiet, isn't it? I asked. John nodded grimly. Edward Wallace's will not come into effect unless Lady Lucy decided to remarry. The Wallace's will is not to be read until Lord Wallace's passing. No one should know about these changes. Not yet. I leaned back, swirling my drink in thought. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but the picture wasn't clear yet. If all this is true, and Lady Lucy would already have guessed what's going to happen to her if she decided to remarry, then it makes sense that she might be angry. Very angry. At how things were unfolding. John exhaled a deep breath, watching me closely. Then what about your interview with Miss Scott earlier? You're not suggesting Emily had a hand in Benjamin's murder, are you? I don't know yet. What has unfolded is that Benjamin was blackmailing Emily, and it had been going on for a while. But I do know that everything in this house, every secret, every change, it's connected. And I need to know what role each person plays. John leaned forward, his eyes serious. You'll need to tread carefully, mate. These are dangerous waters you're wading into. A lot of people are invested in keeping this quiet. I said with my steady voice. I understand. But I can't ignore the facts. Someone killed Benjamin, and I won't stop until I find the murderer. John remained silent for a moment before raising his glass. Well then, let's hope you uncover the truth before it claims more victims. I clinked my glass with John's. The fire crackled, and in the stillness of the room, the weight of the Wallace family's secrets hung heavy in the air. Part 2. The following morning, the sun was still low in the sky as I walked down the quiet halls of Glenmorach Manor. I had barely slept, the weight of my conversation with John Barnett still lingering in my mind. As I passed through the corridor, my eyes fell upon Lady Lucy, who was standing near the grand staircase, speaking with Mr. Morrison, the loyal butler of Glenmorach Manor. Lady Lucy, wearing her elegant green dress that clung tightly to her slender frame, held an envelope in her hand. She leaned in close to Mr. Morrison, her voice low and urgent. Take this letter, Morrison, and find one of the maids. Have her take it to the post office immediately, she instructed. Her tone edged with something I couldn't quite place. Was it impatience or something darker? Mr. Morrison nodded, his usual polite composure unwavering. Of course, Lady Lucy. I will fetch a maid right away. I stopped in my tracks, observing from the shadows as Mr. Morrison took the envelope from Lady Lucy and placed it on a table near the window. He then turned and made his way down the hall, heading toward the servants' quarters. Based on my conversation with John last night, my curiosity piqued. I stepped closer to the table. As I did, my eyes fell on the envelope, and for a fleeting moment, I caught a glimpse of the handwriting. Something about it looked familiar, though I couldn't immediately place it. I quickly glanced around to ensure no one was watching before I snatched the envelope from the table. The maid had not yet arrived. Carefully, I held the envelope in my hands and studied the handwriting on the front. There were elegant loops and precise strokes, a hand that was practiced, yet not without some subtle flaw. The receiver's name and the address words on the envelope were written in a way that suggested a woman's hand, quick, determined, but with a certain flair. A sudden thought struck me like a bolt of lightning. Without wasting a moment, I tucked the envelope under my arm and hurried to my room. My pulse quickened as I reached for my desk. I had something important to do. I was pulling open the drawer. I retrieved the anonymous letter that was written in Scottish Gaelic, the one that had arrived under my door several nights ago. I compared the two pieces of handwriting side by side. My eyes narrowed as I traced the strokes, the angles, and the loops that were so distinctly matched. It was the same hand. Lady Lucy was the anonymous sender. A cold realization swept over me. The letter had hinted at a secret relationship between Robert Wallace, the current heir to the Wallace, and Rosie Taylor, the caregiver. But why had Lady Lucy wanted me to uncover this? Why would she have sent me that message? My mind raced, piecing together fragments of the puzzle. I thought of the new will, the potential shift in the balance of the inheritance, and the resentment that had been building within Lady Lucy. I knew that I needed answers. Lady Lucy would surely not be pleased to learn that I had discovered her connection to the anonymous message. But before I could delve deeper, I needed to search her room. The perfect opportunity would be that afternoon. I learned that Lady Lucy was planning a visit to the Modis. It was the perfect time to investigate, as she would be away for hours. As soon as I knew she had left, I made my way to her room, my heart pounding in anticipation. I had a feeling that whatever I found there would give me another piece to the puzzle. The door to Lady Lucy's room creaked softly as I pushed it open, my eyes scanning the room with practiced efficiency. It was opulent, too opulent, in fact. The air smelled faintly of lavender, and the thick draperies shielded the room from the afternoon light. I moved swiftly, not daring to waste time. My eyes darted across the room, my gaze stopping when I saw it. A small wooden chest by her writing desk, partially hidden beneath a silk cloth. I opened it carefully and found a leather-bound diary resting inside. My fingers tingled as I lifted the book, feeling the weight of its contents. As I opened the pages, I immediately recognized the handwriting. Lady Lucy's. I turned the pages, my heart quickening with each word I read. My eyes caught something she had written about Rosie. That clever little harlot. After failing to win over Benjamin, she is now targeting Robert. It's a shrewd move, considering he's the second in line to inherit, with the hope of gaining status, title, and wealth. That mere servant could never become the next Viscountess of Ayrshire. I paused, my mind racing. Lady Lucy's bitterness towards Rosie was evident, and her words were seething with disdain. I flipped the page, continuing to read. And Anthony, as a Wallace, and after all the sacrifices my darling Edward had made when he was still alive, he should have been the rightful heir and entitled to it all. I felt uneasy as the truth settled in. Lady Lucy was determined to have her son, Anthony, inherit everything. Her dislike toward Robert, the rightful heir, and Rosie, the caregiver, was unmistakable. She saw them as obstacles in Anthony's path, and was willing to do whatever it took to make him the next Viscount. I closed the diary, my mind spinning. Lady Lucy's feelings of entitlement were far deeper than I had originally thought. But now I had to ask myself, was Lady Lucy involved in Benjamin's death? And if so, how?